Good afternoon, everybody. We will get started in a minute. Thanks for taking the time to join. We just want to give everybody a few more minutes to jump on. I will be taking us through the basics of Microsoft Teams, really focus around how those of us affected by the world impact can really stay connected to our colleagues and our work through Microsoft Teams. So that'll be the agenda. Like I said, I just want to give it a minute or two to let some others jump on, but I do want to be cognizant of time. So we will get started here just past the top of the hour in a minute. All right. Looks like we're at that point. Just introduce myself. My name's Tom Craddock. I'm with Netrix. I'm part of our user adoption services team. So we have a team dedicated to helping users understand and implement and leverage their new technology so that they're fully prepared when that new technology comes and understand the best practices and how to use that. So as I mentioned, for those that are just joining, today's really designed to cover the basics of Teams. And when we're talking basics, it's basically chat, calling, and meetings. And then we'll sprinkle in some best practices around collaboration. And those things, all of these are designed to give you a baseline of things you can do, as I often term, out of the box with Teams. So help, like I said, help you stay engaged with your work and your coworkers while we're in this kind of forced remote environment. So before we get started, this is what we call a Teams live event. So it's a one-way broadcast. However, there is a Q&A box and my partner is moderating that. So if you have questions, feel free to pop out the Q&A box and ask a question. We'll try our best to get through those. We've had large audiences, which we really appreciate, and a lot of great questions. So we'll do our best to get through most of those, and I'll draw attention to some additional resources that we have. Here's today's agenda. I've kind of touched on it. It'll be really around the basic functionality of Teams and then some of those additional resources. I have just a couple slides and then I'm going to get into a demo. So don't worry, I'm not here to bore you with a large amount of slides. We just have a couple more to get through and then we'll get right into our demo. Just one thing to call out here is office.com. You know, everybody's here to learn about Teams, but one thing that's important to understand is you can access Teams through office.com. And office.com can be leveraged through any browser. When you're signing in with your company credentials, and that'll take you to the Office 365 applications that are available based on your license. And you can see Teams is one of those. So, you know, the analogy I've been using as far as office.com is a lot of us are looking for a starting point for our day. You know, we're used to walking in the office, we sit down, we say hi to our coworkers, have coffee, fire up Outlook. We don't have that experience right now. So office.com is really a nice virtual starting spot. And I'll talk about that when we start there with the demo. Again, the Teams topic. So really it's going to be more around the chat meeting and calls feature. And then we'll get into high level, the best practices for collaboration. There's again some features that are, again, I term out of the box in Teams, and no matter why your team is created, and we'll talk about the typical reasons we see teams created, but no matter why you're part of that team, there's a certain set of core functionalities that apply to every team. So that's what we'll talk about a little bit. You know, that's typically kind of its own session. But we will touch on some of the highlights that can help you get started from the collaboration aspect. So just a couple things. We'll talk about chatting with coworkers, and we just look through the screenshots. We'll go through how to start a new chat, how to elevate a chat to an audio or video call, and then some of the social aspects and file sharing capabilities. We'll look at meetings. For this particular demo, we'll go through the demo of scheduling a meeting through Teams. Some companies may have the Teams plugin in their Outlook. Additionally, you can schedule through a mobile app, so we'll talk through that as well. If you have Teams, you can use Teams as your meeting platform. Others without Teams can still join your meetings. There's a link that's generated. If your company has a phone policy, that number will be included as well. But you can use Teams as your meeting platform and others can join your Teams meeting. So just want to be clear about that as we're talking kind of out of the box features. And then this peer-to-peer or internal calling, where you can place calls to other internal coworkers through Teams. So that helps you. You don't have to go out to a separate application or scroll through your phone or Outlook looking for contacts. You can just dial that right through Teams, and that's a Teams to team call. And these are some of those best practices around collaboration that we'll talk about. The three main ones are understanding the activity feed, how to use @mentions. It's a term that you may have started to hear or haven't, or will hear a lot more about as you get into Teams, this concept of @mentionings. We'll talk about what that is and how that applies. And then replying in line. So you can see here, and we'll demo this, @mentions, as you start to type the @ symbol in someone's name, you get this suggested behavior, and we'll see this, but this directs a conversation towards someone. And then replying in line keeps everything in one thread. And that's what we'll talk about when we get to that point. Quickly with the mobile app, you can see here, we encourage downloading the mobile app. One thing when it comes to the mobile app, make sure you're following your company's mobile device policy. Some companies have Intune or other company portals that they direct users to go through to download apps. If that's not the case for you, iTunes, the Play Store, all of that you can go ahead and download Microsoft Teams, pardon me. And just like with Office.com, make sure you're logging in with your company credentials. But with the app, it's really great. You can stay connected in real time. You can continue chats that you were having on your device, on your mobile phone, and vice versa. You can start a chat there. You can one-touch join meetings. You can stay up to date with activity notifications. So for those of us that find ourselves, kind of everybody's at home and we're either on a shared PC or we're moving around the house or whatever it may be, you can stay connected with your app. So that's a great feature, and like I said, I highly encourage everybody to download that. Some couple additional resources here, and I'll bring this back up towards the end of the demo here. We've started to put together Netrix adoption.online, and we look at that as a peer community. And right now it's focused around team support, but that'll evolve. But there's some Netrix material, there's some Microsoft material. We encourage those of you that are interested to check out that site. Reach out to User Adoption Community at Netrix LLC if you have some additional follow-up questions. For those that are Netrix partners and clients, if you're looking for additional training similar in style, reach out to your account executives. And then check us out on LinkedIn. Not only has our team as User Adoption Services been doing a lot of these types of offerings, but Netrix as a whole has really been putting together some packages and some offerings that can help you in this kind of expedited COVID-19 experience where we've all sort of been forced home. So we offer a lot of great tools. So just a couple additional resources there. And like I said, I'll circle back to that last slide at the end. So as promised, I'm not going to stay in a heavy presentation mode. I really want to get into more of the demo so you can feel what this environment's going to look like for you. The first thing that I want to start with is Office.com. So I mentioned that as we were going through that demo. Office.com can be accessed through any browser. In this case, I have it open in Chrome, but you can open it in Edge, Firefox, whatever you're using. But you come to Office.com and sign in with your company credentials. Don't create a new account, just use your credentials. And you can see, again, this is why I use this as kind of my virtual starting point. Not all of us have the Teams application installed on our device or all of the Office applications. So if you come to Office.com, you can access all of them through the browser, but we're going to focus specifically on Teams. Just quickly before we move into the Teams specific demo here, I just want to say this as I allude to this as a virtual starting point, you'll see this between this recommended and recent section. These are files that either you've been worked on or in shared Office 365 environment. So it's nice, not only is this a starting point to get to Teams and if you want to open up your Outlook, but as you work on these Office 365 files, typically you're going to find them right here on the landing page. So it makes it easy to get to those files that you've used, accessed recently. So you can kind of see why I call this my virtual starting point, especially for those that don't have the applications installed. So check that out. Make sure you're aware of that. Just log into Office.com with any browser and your credentials and just browse around. And just to add this, and I'm sure I'll say it again because I do as a trainer all the time, everything we're demonstrating today, I highly encourage you practice after this if you haven't yet. Chat with a coworker, run a test meeting, because the functionality is the same, but use the, a little bit more of your downtime now to really understand that before you have to start leveraging it for those high visibility or important work meetings. So practice is something I preach as a trainer because I feel that hands-on experience really has a lot of value. So again, I'm going to launch into Teams, and again, I'm doing this demo through the browser. We have a mixed audience, so I want people that don't have Teams installed on their device, or if they're using a shared device at home, to understand they can stay connected through the browser. The same functionality applies. So first thing I'm going to talk about is chat. So chat, pretty straightforward. The easiest way to start a new chat is to right-click on the chat icon and click New Chat. Now, one thing I'm just going to pause for a second, you'll see as we go through this demo, and this is around the idea of Teams being a centralized kind of collaboration platform, is that as I tab through these things, I'm not popping out new windows. Some of us that come from the Skype world are used to having Skype chat in one and then a window in another. And WebEx has their own behavior. Teams, their goal is this centralized behavior. So I just want to draw attention that as I'm tabbing my way through the menu, I'm not opening different windows. So that's how Teams works. But again, getting back to chat, you right click on your chat icon and select New Chat. And what you'll see is you start to type out someone's name in your environment. And I'm just going to use my colleague here. I can type her name, and there's that suggested autofill behavior. I can turn this into a group chat by continuing to add more people. So you'll see as we work through this demo, this suggested behavior, and you can either click tab or you can click on the name. And within chat, you can have a one-to-one or a one-to-small group conversation. Now, the group conversation allows up to 50 participants, but from being a power user and doing these trainings, we typically see them in a smaller number, 5 to 10 at most, typically, but you can go up to 50 users. So that's how you would create a new message. So I'm going to go back to one that I've already started for some other demos and just look at some of the basic features that you have within Teams. The first one I want to draw attention to is the ability to escalate a call, a chat, to a video or an audio call. So we're seeing a lot of this as you're chatting with someone, people that are really getting into Teams, using Teams for file sharing, things like that. But you're saying, hey, this is just easier if we jump on a call. So I could be chatting and then I can just elevate this to an audio or video call, hash that out. From that call, I could be sharing screens. We'll talk about some of that functionality with the meetings, but you can easily elevate a chat to a call. You can add more people here with the add people icon. You have what they call quick reactions. And I know we see a lot of this in the mobile devices these days, particularly the iOS, where you can, press down and like or laugh at a message someone sent you. Same idea here. You can hover over a message and quick react to it. Now, the easiest way that I can kind of explain, I guess, for lack of better terms, what the quick reactions are is it's a level of acknowledgement, right? If you think about that from your mobile device, when you do that, when you're liking or laughing, the far end is getting a notification that you liked or laughed or whatever that is. And same thing here, they'll get an activity notification when you react to a message. So I term it as a level of acknowledgement, right? You don't always have to respond back with got it or okay or things like that. You can acknowledge with a quick reaction. Additionally, with Teams, you can share a file. So you have the attach button here. So you can share a file. All files that are shared will live under the files section of your chat. So your chat every chat you have with someone has a file section, and you can go back and get to those files. Additionally, there's some social components like a full emoji keyboard, a full GIF library. So these are some of the things that I encourage when it comes to practice. I've had some groups where I've said, find your funniest GIF and send it to your coworker, or post a chat and have everybody reply, things like that. But these social aspects, while they're fun in nature, they help you get used to Teams. So, like I said, that's why I encourage the practicing. But these things, these apply throughout any chat feature in any Teams environment, unless your company decided to turn those off. Additionally, with some chat, you can see this recent list. So your chat list will grow as you start to talk with people. You have your chats. Another thing, meeting chat. So as you have a meeting, if anybody's chatting in the meeting window, which we'll show shortly, those will fall under your chat list as well. So a couple additional things you can do from chat, and I'll just draw attention to this now, these 3 ellipses. That's always going to be where you find more options throughout the Teams environment, and we'll see this again. But a couple other things I can do just to help control my chat environment. You can see, just much like a mobile device, mark as unread, mute, things like that. One of them is pin. So, we've been using Teams for a long time. I have a chat list that's probably over 150, if not more. So when I want to talk to team members or people I talk to regularly, I pin them to the top so I don't have to scroll through my list. So that's just some best practices around helping you organize. But that's why I said why I encourage you practicing some of these things. So again, that's the chat aspect. So I'm going to move into the meeting aspect. And again, I know I've said it, but just notice as I come into the calendar tab, I'm not popping out a new window, right? I'm using my calendar, and this is a demo account, so it's a little light. But one thing that you'll notice as your Teams environment evolves, if not yet, that your Outlook syncs with Teams. So your calendar will be here as well. You have this Meet Now feature. I just want to talk about this quickly. This is where you can start an impromptu meeting. You can click on Meet Now and launch a meeting, so one that wasn't scheduled. And from within the meeting, you can start to invite people. So if you think about that scenario I was saying, maybe you were having a chat and you wanted to escalate that to a call. Well, maybe you've been talking to people in a variety of channels and you want to just start a Meet Now and you don't want to go through the scheduling process. You can just click a Meet Now and add people, and that's that impromptu meeting. So that's how that works. That's why that's there. But I want to focus more in on the more common feature, which is the scheduling of a meeting. So you can either single click in an open spot in your calendar, or you can come up to New Meeting here. And what's nice with the meeting, it's not very groundbreaking from the behavior we're used to with any meeting platform. You always need a title, you need attendees, date times, things of that nature. So I'm just going to set up a quick test meeting here, and I'm just going to add a couple people here. So again, you'll see this autofill behavior, right? So this is a theme that goes throughout Teams, the suggested or this autofill type of behavior. I'm going to give it a date and a time, and I'm just going to quickly say test meeting. Just one quick, I'm doing this for example in the sake of time, but when it comes to meetings, it's always a good idea to make your meeting title as specific as possible and add at least a couple lines or couple bullets about what that meeting's about. That gives people some context into what that meeting's for, can help them prepare, especially for those of us that are used to walking down the hall at 1 o'clock every Wednesday for the same meeting. That meeting may have been shifted, it's online, it may be a different time. So the more you can add a little detail, the better. And that's just a best practice in regards to meetings. I just wanted to encourage that as you're starting to schedule meetings yourself. A common question I get here is, where's that link that you're talking about people can join? Again, this is Teams behavior. It's not something we turned off. That populates after you click send. So I'm going to go ahead and send this meeting. And we'll see here, here's my meeting I created. So that's the scheduling experience. Again, you can do some of that through Outlook. We're going to focus on Teams in this demo. So we're going to stay Teams centric. So I'm also going to talk about joining from Teams, because the end goal of Teams is that you're doing the majority of your work in Teams. So you really don't have to keep kind of bouncing out into other things. You can see here, it does sync with Outlook. So you still will get the reminder and the join online experience. When you click join online, it'll prompt you to run in Teams. So just a little bit about what that join experience is like. But let's join from Teams and talk about the join experience, some best practices, and then some meeting controls. So here you can see now I have that link, right? So I can click that link to join, or as if I pop this open in Outlook, I would click the link. But from here, I'm going to click join right here. And I'm not going to be able to fully join this meeting because I'm in an active meeting, but I do want to talk about this page here. And I think it's one of the better things that Teams added, and it may get overlooked. But Before you join a meeting, they have this prepare page, which allows you to turn your camera on or off or turn your microphone on or off before you go into the meeting. So Teams is taking some steps to help reduce that static or that background noise or the people that are kind of struggling to get connected in the beginning of the meeting. You know, I know we've all been on one of those calls. You can control that a little bit easier before you go into the meeting. Additionally, you have this devices tab. Now I'm in the browser in the Teams application, so the one that's installed, you have a similar window, but it allows you to choose your intended device that you're trying to join that meeting from. Additionally, if you have the downloaded Teams application on your device, there's a make a test call button here where you can place a test call, record a line, and have it played back to you to make sure the device you're using is working properly. And why I think this is important, besides just, you know, going in properly the way you want to be set up, whether it's video and audio or not, there's a couple best practices around meetings. And one of those is that a headset is really a headset experience, is better than no headset. So what do I mean by that? I have a headset on. This is, you know, kind of a fancy one. I do a lot of trainings. But additionally, just your typical earbuds, you know, especially the ones with, you know, the microphone on them. I know it's a little hard to see, but are still going to give you a better experience. It's going to be better audio for you, and your audio going back is going to be better. So, you know, for anybody has some headsets around, that's why I draw attention to the devices tab as well as the practice and test call. Go in there and make sure what you're trying to use works. Now, if you don't have a headset, there's a couple other best practices and tips that I want to include. If you don't have a headset and you're on the meeting, one, and actually this applies headset or not, is if you're not an active speaker, you should be on mute. That's common meeting behavior across any platform. If you're not actively speaking, especially given that a lot of us are at home with family members, you should be on mute to reduce that background noise. If you don't have a headset and you're joining, you know, you're just kind of sitting in front of your laptop or whatever it may be, you want to have the volume set to a level that's comfortable for you, but not cranked up overly loud, because what would happen is as someone is speaking, that gets picked up on your end and then filtered back through, and it becomes that loop experience I'm sure everybody on here has experienced at some point or another. So have your volume set to a comfortable level to hear and stay on mute until you have to speak. Additionally, if you don't have a headset, you don't want to do things like this where you're trailing off or turning to the side. You need to stay focused towards your laptop or your device for the best quality experience. So those are some tips that I can give you as you're working your way and adjusting to this work from home experience that'll help your meeting, the quality of your meeting be a little bit better. So again, I'm not able to join this, but that is the join experience. I do want to take us through kind of the meeting control experience. So let me pull that window up really quick because I think that's something that's really important to understand. Now remember, the caveat here is that I'm running a live event, so this is a one-way broadcast, but these meeting controls down here are still the same for you. So when you're in a meeting, you'll have a bar down here at the bottom of your meeting where you have your controls, such as turning your camera on and off. Now I've been saying mute yourself if you're not speaking. That's this button here. Your content sharing window, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. You could pop open your chats. You can view participants. So again, these windows are going to be a little bit different in a meeting. So you can see just the two of us kind of running this meeting. But I do want to draw attention to this participants tab because it's come up in a lot of these trainings I've been doing. As a host of a meeting, there's a mute all feature up here. So that's really nice to help the reduction of background noise. You know, people are kind of getting used to this. So what I've been doing with meetings, and even before this, everybody was work from home experience, if I'm doing something remotely and I have a large crowd, I'll give it a minute and I'll mute all. And I'll tell everybody that, you know, I'll introduce myself. I've muted everybody. If you have a question, use the mute icon to come off of mute and ask your question. That's already then muted everybody. It's encouraging that behavior of staying on mute unless you're speaking. So that's something you can do from kind of a meeting and crowd control perspective like I said, there'd be a mute all. There's some individual mute controls, but that's a good way to start a meeting without noise. So just a couple things, but these features here are all built into Teams meeting. The only thing that's different is the Q&A, and that's not part of a typical team meeting, but you can see we've been getting some good questions, some published, so some pretty cool stuff going on with the live event. The last thing I want to cover is the sharing content. So I just want to talk through this. I can't stop sharing or you wouldn't see the rest of our demo here, but there's some things to be aware of. You can either choose share a screen or share an application or a window. And just from a high level, the difference here. In this case, I'm sharing a screen because I'm sharing a lot of things as part of this demo. But what I've done on the back end is I've closed out of anything proprietary or confidential that I don't want to risk going through to the far end. So if you share a screen, it's sharing everything that's happening on that screen. So for most people, if they don't have to move around a lot, you can share an application or a window, and that'll just share, whether it's a PowerPoint or an Excel, for an example, just that application or window and not everything else that's happening. I just want people to be cognizant of, if you just choose to share a screen, make sure you know that everything that is on that screen can show through to the far end and will if it pops up on your screen. So that's the difference in sharing content, and that's that icon here. So that takes us through our typical meeting behavior. Just one thing before I move into the calls section is, in a typical meeting, there's 4 windows that tile out here, and the most recent and active speakers will take over those windows. The rest of the users will tile out across the bottom, and then as you speak, you jump into one of the active windows. And again, that's just Teams out of the box behavior. That's how it works, right? That's not configurable at this point. So you'd see 4 windows versus the one we're seeing in this demo. So I just wanted to take you through the meeting controls. So just a quick recap. I always like to do this about the halfway point. Office.com, in case anybody joined late, you can log in from any browser using your company credentials, get to your Office 365 files, but especially Teams. You can stay connected through Teams through the browser. And then we talked about the basic chat features and the scheduling and joining experience. So I want to jump into the call section. That's the peer-to-peer or internal calling. So again, this is out of the box features. You can call people internally. So I don't have to go outside of my Teams environment, scroll through my contacts, find that person's number, type it in somewhere else. If I want to call someone internally and I haven't had a chat with them yet where I can just directly elevate it, I can come to my calls section and click make a call. And again, we'll see that suggested behaviors. You start to type someone out. I'll just go ahead and pick myself again here. And then I can choose to make this an audio or a video call. Or if I've had recent or suggested people, I can just launch that right from here. As you start to use your calls more and more, you'll see recent and frequent people you connect with populate in this area here. You can create groups, you can create speed dials. Again, that's some things you can do. We're not going to go through that. Understanding this calls feature, again, is another tab within Teams, and it makes it easy to call someone directly through Teams internally, right? This is internal or peer-to-peer calling. So just want to be very clear about what that is. Additionally, you have your contacts tab here. So again, with the syncing with Outlook, this will grow out. This is my lighter demo account, but you can kick off a chat, shoot an email, or start an audio or video call and manually add contacts. But what I want to just kind of draw attention to here is there's a lot of different ways. I don't want to say a lot of different ways. There's several different ways to perform some of the same actions. And that really circles me back to the practice aspect. For example, most of the calls I initiate are from existing chats, but maybe you're new to the environment, so you don't have a full chat list. So maybe you're more comfortable coming through the calls menu, right? There's different ways to do things. So it's why I encourage the hands-on practice. So that takes us through our basics, right? That's our chat. Remember, just quick basic on that. Right click for a new chat. We talked about the scheduling and joining through calls. Excuse me, through calendar, pardon me there. And then our call section for internal calling. So what I want to touch on next is around those best practices for teams, the collaboration aspect. And again, this is an intro course, so there's a lot more we can offer around the collaboration aspect. So again, reach out to those resources that we mentioned, and I'll bring that up at the end again. But there are some, again, core functionalities or out of the box features, as I use the term, that you can do. So let me just, before we get into that, just talk about teams and channels. And I created a demo team because I think it's easier to see one to really understand it. Teams can be created for a variety of reasons. For example, in our environment, we have project teams, we have social initiative teams, we have social group teams, departmental teams. So there's different reasons, and that's something that you and your organization would work through. But what we're going to see, the behavior we're going to demonstrate, applies across any team. So no matter why that team is created, how you leverage teams and channels, what we're about to show applies across all teams. It's how you work within a team and a channel. So I just want to be clear about that. I've created a demo team, but everything we're going to see would apply if this was user adoption services social demo team or anything else, right? Department team. So before we get into that, just quickly, the terms teams and channels, you'll start to hear that more as you get into teams. The team is the highest level. So user adoption services here, that's my team. So an easy way to think of this, we have a large user adoption services team. We do a lot of different things as part of our user adoption services. Some of that being client discovery, some training, some communications. For example, here I built out a weekly webinar channel because everything I'm doing for the webinar, I'm going to do in this channel. So instead of having just one kind of catch-all place as a team, there's channels that you can organize, and then that's where you share the files related to that channel, and you have the conversations related to that channel. So that is a high level, a very high level of how teams and channels work. Again, the collaboration, there's a lot that goes into why teams are created and how your company is going to use them. So I'm just giving a high level example. But again, the features and functionality we're about to show is going to apply to any team, any team that gets created. Sorry, open up the wrong window there. So what I want to demonstrate is what I consider kind of the three core features, again, those out of the box that helps you start down the collaboration path. And the first is what they call @mentions. So if you're not familiar with that, you may start to hear a lot more about that. It works in Teams, but it really works across Office 365. Check out what this says down here. Start a new conversation, type @ to mention someone. So again, I'm using my weekly webinar channel because we're doing a webinar, and a channel has a post and a file section by default. So I'm in the post of that channel, and I'm going to start a new conversation, and I'm just going to quickly just do, actually, I always do that so quick because I'm used to it. The concept of @mentions, pardon me. You actually type the @ symbol out, and it gives you suggestions based on people within the team. In this case, I have myself here, or as I start to type someone's name, I can @mention them. So you'll see the @ and the TO I started to type. When I click that person's name, the @ symbol goes away, but it turns into this bluish purple look. And what @mentions do is they direct their conversation towards somebody. So the difference is in chat, you had your one-on-one private space for chats. In the teams and channel structure, this post section, these are visible to everybody that's part of the team. But if you want to direct your conversation to someone that's part of the team, that's where you start to leverage the @mentions. So that's how you direct your conversations towards someone. So I can say, are you free? And this is just an example, right? I'm just using some sample stuff. So this says, hey, are you free? So I'm going to just show you a couple things here. For example, I can like that message. So we'll see the like pop in a second here. Oops. There's that like. So this person, when I asked, hey, are you free? They like this message. Again, that's a level of acknowledgement. So now I know they're free. They didn't have to kind of, I don't want to say waste, but add another line that says, yes, I'm free. That like symbol lets me know, okay, I'm free. Additionally, if you look up here, I received an activity notification about that. So this is where I want to start incorporating the activity notification. And the easiest way to, again, from a high level, I know this is an intro course, to understand the activity feed is what you find in your activity feed is relevant to you. And if you even if you take that very high level, it's typically someone reaching out to you or replying or reacting to a post that you started. So even if you scroll through some of these examples, you see the reactions, replies, at mentions, right? So all of that typically falls under the bucket of replying or at mentioning someone or someone doing that to you. Additionally, missed calls, someone asked you to join a meeting, or post in a channel you follow. Again, we're not going to get too deep into that, but big picture, the activity feed is what's relevant to you. So that's just quickly, the analogy I use for that is, kind of verse email, right? Email, we get a ton of emails. We're CC'd on a bunch of emails, things like that. It's on us to go through there and see, is this important to us? Was this just for visibility? Do I really have an action item here? With Teams, everything in your activity feed is relevant for you. So just to quickly kind of round that story out, as a Teams power user, I start my day in Teams and I go to my activity notification because I know if I have something waiting there, it's for me, right? So instead of going through Outlook and scrolling through a bunch of emails, I start in my activity feed. So that's just, again, high level example. There's a lot of ways this can go, but in an intro class, I just really want to make sure you understand the basics. And the basics of activity is that what you find here is relevant to you. And what's nice is when you click on the activity, it takes you directly to where that activity happened. So I already clicked that. Let me, I'll get another example, but I already clicked there. But when you click there, it would take you right to there. So when your teams and channels grow out and you're starting to get activities throughout different channels, when you click on the activity, it'll take you right into it. So you don't have to go kind of hunt and peck around for where that activity is actually happening. So let me get back to the teams and channel structure. I wanted to really draw attention to that because that activity feed is critical to how Teams works. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a line so we can see the next thing I want to cover. So you'll see here, it said ready. Again, that popped away real quick. The activity notification, I'll just look at that again. So somebody replied to a conversation I started. There you go. When I click the activity, you see that yellow box kind of fading away. So it took me right to that. But again, things happening that are relevant to me. What I want to draw attention to is this concept of reply in line. And it's really a fancy way of saying make sure you click reply. So when you're trying to reply to a thread, inevitably when people get used to Teams, I used to do it all the time. If I wanted to reply, it just looks like I would start, I would reply in here, pardon me. But I want to make sure you're aware of replying in line. And again, in this case, we're just kind of starting, so I'm using some really generic stuff. So I'm going to say great. But what you can see here, by replying in line, I am keeping this as a thread. So when you're talking about the same topic or working on the same file, we're not going to get too much into that. You want to make sure you reply in line. Otherwise, you're starting a new conversation. And it says that in this box. So if you start a new conversation down here and you think you're replying, there's a chance that person's not going to see that. They're not going to get an activity notification because you didn't reply to the thread they started. So it's really important to understand that you reply in line when you're trying to reply to a conversation. Use this box down here when you're starting a new conversation. And that's why they have that down here. So again, I'm just going to quick react. I'm just going to use another one just so you can see. This is a very common back and forth scenario that's starting to evolve here. Now, the content of the conversations would be a little more in depth, but this behavior, again, remember the behavior we're showing applies across no matter why the team's created. So what's the behavior we're focusing on? How the activity feed works, the concept of at mentions. Again, make sure you use @mentions. And I'll even tell people as they're getting used to it, you can't really overuse @mentions. So, if you're worried about it, use the @mention. Additionally, some things you can do is @mention, the channel level here. So I can even @mention my weekly webinar channel, and that would send an activity notification to everybody that's part of that channel. So there's different ways to leverage that mention, but you have to use that to direct those conversations, to trigger those activity feeds for people. Otherwise, they're really not going to have any idea you're trying to reach out to them. So @mentions, how the activity feed works, replying in line. Those are 3 core features of how Teams works. That's out of the box, but that's just how Teams works. That's how it's going to work. That's how you leverage Teams efficiently. So that's why I'm really kind of harping on those things. So again, I'll just kind of post that. So you can see I've @mentioned the channel. Now I'm just going to use this document here, this example from before, to talk about this. This level of class really doesn't allow us to get into deep detail about collaboration, but you can share a file and collaborate on a file within Teams and channels, and that's really one of the greater benefits, and that's what some of our advanced classes offer. So if you're interested, like I said, please reach out. But when you've structured your team and channel properly, and then you've gone and loaded all your files into the channel, now let's take a quick peek here. The goal of these channels and organizing these things is that Teams is your one source of truth. So when you come into Teams and you're looking for files, when you go to the Files tab of your channel, that's the most up-to-date and recent file. When files live in Teams in the Office 365 environment, as you work on them, they stay up to date. So again, that's more of the collaboration piece that we're really just time doesn't allow us to get into with the mixed audience. But what I want to draw attention to is once I have my files loaded in the channel, so why it's important to get your files in your channel and structure properly is I can do something like this, or when I click reply here, or whether this was a new thread, I'm just going to reply for demo purposes here. I can click my attached link here, and this allows me to browse through my teams and channels, and I can link to the document that lives there. And you see it says share a link. So at this point, I've been talking about how this type of behavior can replace the long email CC thread from a conversational standpoint. Well, same idea when you're attaching a file. A lot of us are used to email a file with an attachment. Then you download that file, you save it as a different name, you re-upload it, and that goes around and around and around. And we've all been in the scenario where we go, where's the latest file, right? With Teams, that goes away. So when you start to structure things properly, you get this benefit of link sharing, where now when I share this document, everybody within the channel who I want to work with, we can be in this document together, we can work on it, but Teams is keeping this up to date in real time. So as I make edits, whether I come back to this conversation or I come back to the files section, it's updating those in real time. So that's the importance of getting your files into the channel, organizing them properly, and using the attach feature. And again, that's what our advanced collaboration classes offer. But this type of behavior, again, everything we're talking about is out of the box, kind of how Teams works no matter why the team is set up. That's why I want to really focus on that. So that takes me to the end of the collaboration pieces. I'm just going to do a quick recap, and then I'm going to pull up the that resources page just one more time. So for anybody that joined late, again, this is just a quick 2-minute recap. Office.com. If you don't have the Teams application installed on your device, you're using a shared PC, whatever the case may be, you can come to Office.com from any browser and still stay connected to your Office 365 environment, specifically Teams, right? So you can launch Teams in the browser like I did. To start a new chat, right-click on the new chat icon, click New Chat. Again, remember, this behavior, this is all staying within these tabs. Scheduling a meeting is done through the calendar. You schedule a new meeting, or you can meet now. We talked about the joining best practices. We talked high level the Teams and channel structure, but again, the @mentioning, activity feed, replying in line, and file sharing. Those are things that work across any team. You'll start to see that if you haven't as you get into your team's environment. You can call people internally through the calls tab, just clicking make a call and that suggested behavior, and then turn it to an audio or a video call. So that's the 2-minute recap on what we covered. But I hope you saw the value in some of the things you can do, right? These things, these out-of-the-box features, you can stay connected and engaged with your teammates and your coworkers and your files through Office.com and through Teams. And as I'm wrapping up, oops, see, my own mistake there. I had my Outlook open in my share screen so you could see why I saved that. But if I just bring us back to the additional resources page on our screen here, remember we started a Netrix adoption.online. That's a peer site, right? We encourage adoption. We have some, like I said, Microsoft stuff, some of our own stuff, and that'll continue to evolve. So check that out. If you're looking for additional follow-up or have some questions, user adoption community at netrixllc.com. And then check us out on LinkedIn. Like I said in the beginning, we not only is our team, but a lot of Netrix is doing a lot of great things around this type of stuff, or some packages to help you get into that work from home environment quickly and successfully, so you can keep your company moving. So I will wrap it up there. I hope this was informative. We will continue these sessions on Wednesday, same time, for the upcoming several weeks. So if you found this valuable or you want to encourage some of your teammates and colleagues, please do. We're more than happy to continue running these sessions. Follow us on LinkedIn. We post updates on when we're going to do these. So like I said, I'll leave it at that. I really appreciate everyone's time, and I just want to say, everybody, please stay safe out there, do your part, and hopefully we can get back to our new normal soon. Thank you, everybody, and take care.